Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and I'm here with Jacob Thurston of Optimized Health, and we are talking gut health. We're talking feeling good. We're talking about how to make sure diseases don't memorize themselves inside of you because of emotional stress. Hello, Jacob. How are you?
Hey, Sarah, I'm doing excellent today. Glad to be here. Glad
Okay,
to
so
talk
I'm
with you.
excited about this conversation.
Yeah, I've been pumped all week thinking about this. So I'm really excited to
Oh,
talk to you and your audience and just share some wonderful information that I feel like has changed my life and my clients' lives. So,
well, yeah. Tell people a bit about how you got started in this and
Mhm.
how this changed your life.
Well, I basically have always wanted to run a business that made people's lives better. And
Mhm.
so, it's kind of that finding your passion thing, right? And I was going to college and I got super obsessed about nutrition while I was in college. Crazy levels. Where I would stay up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning after studying and research and listen to nutritionists and dietitians and all this stuff. And it was just an obsession. And for years, I walked around with all this knowledge. And I didn't really know what to do with it. And I wanted to start a business where I made people's lives better. I was really into like Tony Robbins and all these people that have made the world a better place, through their information, even like Abraham Hicks, some of these people who are really great. And so I was always into that. I'm thinking, how can I make people's lives better? How can I make people's lives better? How can I make, you ask yourself that question. And it dawned on me, why don't I use this health information I have to help other people? And so I'm a certified holistic health practitioner now, and I've been in the transformational space of helping people with gut health in particular and my main mission behind that is all disease. This is Hippocrates. This is a quote from Hippocrates. All the doctors make a Hippocratic oath. Well, Hippocrates himself said that all disease begins and ends in the gut. And so that's really my heart behind it all, is to help people with their gut issues. I particularly help people with IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, which can be high levels of constipation or diarrhea, digestive pain, GERD, acid reflux, IBS or IBD. And I help them get out of that with alternatives to the insane merry-go-round and vicious cycle of modern medicine, which is basically either you take a pill or you get surgery. And neither of those are what I do. So I find an alternative approach to help people end that disease, which is where all disease begins and ends, which is in the gut. So people usually come to me and they know deep down inside that this isn't going anywhere well. And so they decide, you know what? I need to get this fixed because otherwise I've got a really hard road ahead of me and I don't want to live that way. I don't want to be kept alive by the medical system because that's pretty much what they'll do. They don't care about your quality of life, sadly. It's mainly just to keep you alive and keep you going. And so we want to give people a
Crazy.
thriving, amazing
Yeah.
life where they can have
Yeah.
health and abundant health so they can go and do the things that they're meant to do in this world. Yeah.
So how is our past connected to our gut health in our present?
There's multiple ways that works. So we can talk the physical side, or we can really talk the what I would call the metaphysical side. So there's two aspects here. Number one is gut health in and of itself. Gut health is in a major decline in the United States of America and in the Western world. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. And I won't go into all of them now because we could be a laundry list for 8 hours talking about that. But what's happened is throughout the years, especially after World War II, the health of our nation started to suffer mainly because of microwave meals. And it's not to diss. I'm glad that women can work because they add so much to the marketplace, to the workplace, and add so much value. What happened is women were going to work because everyone was on the draft. And so when they started to go back to work, the food system, women got sold on the idea of giving their families. It's just the way it was at the time. Things have changed now. But giving their families microwave dinners and going out and getting
Mhm.
fast food and junk food and getting that stuff so that would be easy and quick, but it came with a price. And so since about the 50s or 60s, around that time frame when this started to really take flight, essentially, the degradation of our gut had begun. And what happened is we stopped doing these ancient practices that we used to do. And we're so clung to certain fermentation practice, certain things that we used to do. And we stopped that and started eating highly preserved foods. And those preserved foods have caused a generational breakdown in the gut bacteria. And you get your bacteria from your mother. So mainly from your mom, not from your dad. A little bit comes from your dad, but mainly from your mother and from being born through natural birth. And when you have a C-section, actually, you don't get that huge shot of in the microbiome. And so some people would actually call that, when someone has a C-section, that they literally, it's like they're missing a limb when they come out of the C-section.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and there's a doctor out of Cornell that I interviewed a while back. I think his name's Rodney Daniels. Superhuman Organisms, a great book. And he's done a lot of research into this. And he says it's like, basically, you're like an amputee. You don't have your gut. You don't have the bacteria that are necessary for life. And so those bacteria train your immune system. They train the inflammation response in your body. They give you all of that. So that's the physical aspect. It's a generational situation where the gut health gets worse and it gets worse, and everybody's got a mom, so we all get worse and worse and worse. Now, on the metaphysical side, your past can come from the people that you toxic perks improve. I just, guys, want to do a plug here for Sarah's book. Incredible and life-changing. Go get it now. If you haven't read it, you have to. But there's,
I didn't pay him to say that.
If she did, I would have said way more. No, I'm just kidding. So we look at the past, we look at this metaphysical thing, and what is this, what is going on in our bodies from something called stress? Well, we actually store stress inside of our body in multiple ways, but let's just talk about the physical way. Cortisol. Cortisol gets released into your bloodstream through your adrenal glands. And how does that happen? Well, it actually happens through thought alone. It's not because of the stress in your life. It's because of a little gland right here in your brain, right about here, right about the center, and right here behind your eyebrows. And it's called the pituitary gland. And that gland actually releases a chemical cocktail every time you feel a feeling and think thoughts. And it races out into your bloodstream and tells your body what to do. Your whole body is looking toward this pituitary gland and really your brain, because your brain tells the pituitary gland what to do, on what to do next, like a conductor of a symphony. And your body's a symphony. And if the conductor is drunk and the conductor's all over the place and doesn't have any set way, what will happen is the symphony gets out of balance. And so that's the same thing that happens with the body. But cortisol will actually get stored physically in tissue for long periods of time. So you can have cortisol release, and a lot of people have chronic pain because there's literally concentration of cortisol in the body. And that can be long-term, short-term, but it's all caused by thoughts and feelings. So if we have an event in our past, my point in this is, if we have an event in our past, Sarah, and everybody listening, that causes stress, the event is actually not the thing that's the problem. And so many people will think that it's the thing that happened to them that's the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is the 1,000 times a day that you relive that abuse. The 1,000 times a day that you make decisions based out of fear, the 1,000 times a day that you can't stop thinking about how angry you are at that person for abusing you, or what they said to you in that moment, or what they did to you. And what happens is it gets embossed in our brain, kind of like, you know how you have a coin press, and the coin press produces the same coin every single time. That happens in your neural circuitry. So your brain starts running the same paths. It's kind of like if you were to walk through a field, Sarah, right? And you're walking through a field. All of you have had this experience in one way, shape, or form, even if you've just seen it in a movie. You walk through a field, and the first time you walk through, the grass is high and it's hard to walk through. Well, the second time you walk through, the grass is a little bit more trampled down. You walk through that path 100 times. You're never going to take a different path through the field because the grass is worn down to the dirt, and it's a little path through the field. The same thing happens in our brains. You run the same pathway over and over and over again, and it's easy to go there, and your brain and your body will automatically take that route and put you in that stress, fight or flight response, which is degrading your body's health. So that's how the past affects your body and your gut health. And your digestive system is the first culprit to go, because it's a very intricate system with pepsin and all these different hydrochloric acids that get produced by your body. It's a very sensitive, very complex system that goes on in your body. Actually, 80% of your energy on a daily basis is used to digest food. So it's the biggest process that your body does all day long. And as soon as you get into a stressed out state, it's the first thing you're going to notice is going to go. Yeah.
Okay. And one thing I really want to, there's so much wisdom there. And one thing I really want to point out is, because I think most of my listeners are familiar. Yeah, you need to take control of your thoughts. I mean, they would understand that. That'd be pretty common knowledge. But what we're talking about here is that your body memorizes a chemical state based on stress. So it's like, if I hit myself in the head with my own book, if I hit myself in the head with a book, and then I'm angry about it, and so 100 times over the next 2 weeks, I think about that experience of getting hit in the head with the book.
Yes,
right?
very
So
similar to that.
replay.
But it's even, and then it's deeper than that, like you mentioned, the addiction, because what will happen is you'll think about getting hit in the head with a book. And what's insane is this cortisol, the cortisol, long-term and short-term cortisol. Why do we all live in such stress, Sarah? And everybody listening, why do we get so stressed out about driving the car to work? Why do we get so stressed out about getting the groceries? Why do we get why? We got to begin to ask ourselves that question. And when we begin to ask ourselves the question, well, why? Well, the answer is now here through the neuroscience understanding. It's an addiction. Cortisol is an addictive substance, as addictive as heroin or cocaine. And there's a famous speaker that says this: our biggest addiction in the United States is not heroin, it's not cocaine, it's not marijuana, it's not alcohol, it's problems. And so, and it becomes an addiction that we personally need help getting out of, because it will consume you. And as many of you know here, and I know personally from my own experience.
Well, and Jacob, that's something when I've worked with coaches, I'm obviously a real believer that every coach needs a coach. And that was kind of a lot of the work that I've personally done, because they're like, oh, look, things are really bad. Now they're really good. How are you doing chemically with it being really good? And it's like, yeah, sometimes good. And sometimes I go, well, but what if it's about to be bad again? Or what if something's going to happen? I'll be honest and say that's something that I have previously worked on and probably still need to work on.
And it will get so bad, Sarah, with that people will begin to change, and they'll actually have changes in their lives. And I see this with people. I mean, I've watched people have scans come back with no brain tumors while in my course. I've seen people have miraculous changes in their health, really serious alterations that haven't been able to be made for 30 years. And here's the crazy part about it. You'll see them go back to that old person. And what usually you'll say to yourself is something like this: well, this just doesn't feel right. Like you with like things in your life and things getting better, you'll say to yourself, this just doesn't feel right. And that's a cop out, right? And I'm not picking on anybody here who's done that. I've done it. We've all done it. It's not that it doesn't feel right. It's that it's unfamiliar. And the way the human body works and the way we work subconsciously, because the subconscious is just all of our memorized thoughts and feelings in our body. It's not anything more than that. What happens is the body is more familiar with that emotion of things not going well, more familiar than it is with things actually going well. And so to have some sort of normalcy or lack of variety and have some certainty in life, we all need certainty. I need to make sure this chair is going to stand up while I'm sitting on it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to have this interview. I'd be all freaking out, right? Like anyone would be. We need that familiarity. There's also a level at which your cells change to want those emotions. So we can talk about that if you want, but there's a cellular biological side to that.
Absolutely. Have you read, are you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Absolutely. Love him.
Yes. Okay. So this is my introduction to that work of what you're talking about is memorizing those negative emotions. So yeah, let's talk about so it's kind of like, if you're used to being thirsty and then you start to like quench your thirst, your body goes, oh no, but I should still be thirsty. And it starts craving that cortisol. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Similar. It would be like every time you're thirsty, you get a hit of cortisol that actually gives you energy to go out and try to find water.
Okay, great.
And so you get addicted to that hit of energy because cortisol will give you energy. It's not a bad thing. Now, what happens in the body is we talked about that pituitary gland and the chemical cocktail that gets released. Well, the pituitary gland is located here. I'll do it again. The pituitary gland that's located there, what will happen is your cells begin to create receptor sites. Receptor sites are kind of like a key going into a lock. And as soon as that key goes into that proper lock with the receptor site, with the chemicals coming from the pituitary gland, the cell does certain functions, creates
Mm-hmm.
proteins, really, basically. And so what happens is the cell says, wow, we're getting a lot of locks. So let's say in the case of a toxic person, when you
Mm-hmm.
work with a toxic person, you have a toxic person in your life. What they'll do is certain things like love bombing, and they'll do certain things like love bombing just means they come to you and they say the most beautiful, drippingly sweet words, and you go, oh my gosh, they love me. They bombed you. And then later they'll go, you're a piece of crap. You don't know what you're doing. You need to stop it. And something's wrong with you. Okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
What that does is it creates a cycle of cortisol and dopamine, cortisol and dopamine, cortisol and dopamine. Just like it's a rush, just like as if every time you got thirsty and you made yourself get thirsty, you got that cortisol rush, which gave you that addiction. It becomes an addiction. You're actually physically addicted to the abuse. There's a term that was used in the concentration camps. I forget the exact name. You might know it.
Trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding, yes. And there's another term for it, but yes,
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah.
Yes, Stockholm syndrome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. You'd think, how could that happen? That's so dark, right? We all just want to go, I don't even want to think about that. That's weird. I would never do that. But you become bonded to the trauma because of.
You would do that. Everyone who's experienced road rage, right? My husband, I'll joke and I'll say, it doesn't matter. You don't even know them. And he'll get mad in the car and he's addicted. I love you, Ben. He probably won't listen to this because he has to hear me all the time. But, it's like, yeah, it's just like anger, and anger feels powerful. It's that energy hit you were talking about. And then he can be angry and at the other driver and feels powerful.
Yes, but here's the issue. So what happens is your cells begin to create more receptor sites. So let's say you had one for anger, because anger is like something you feel every once in a while. And then you get more and more rageful on the road every time.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is your cells divide and they create more cells called daughter cells. And you're always recreating new cells, and cells die. Well, when it recreates new cells, you get more receptor sites because the body's going, well, he's angry a lot. Yeah. We have a lot of anger. And what will happen is your body becomes physically addicted. Your cells themselves become physically addicted to the emotions of anger. So it takes just a little bit more. It takes just a little bit more. It takes just a little bit more. And then when you try to cut that off, this is why people have such a hard time changing and need somebody to help them come alongside of them and coach them and show them the tools. Because what will happen is you will try to stop. You'll say, I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to go a whole day. And either one thing or the other will happen. Number one, you'll be sitting on the couch, eating your potato chips, watching TV, whatever. And you go,
how are potato chips for your gut health? Maybe, yay, no, I'm just kidding.
It depends on where you're at. You should be able to, let's put it this way. I always tell all my clients, you should be able to eat potato chips and not have vicious symptoms. So you should be able to have potato chips and enjoy them. I do. And so it just depends on where you're at with your health. And so you're sitting on the couch and you go, I'll just do it tomorrow, whatever. I don't care. I'll get it tomorrow. And that is your body, literally your cells going, he's not going to do anything. Perfect. Or you'll try to stop, and your body, the cells will literally send a signal up into your brain, and it will be a feeling that will produce thoughts that will make you get angry. It's like, and anybody who's ever broken an addiction will know this. You'll know this because I quit smoking in high school, and I was smoking for like 2 years or something, a year and a half and whatever. And it's really bad for your health, by the way, if you don't know that. But I quit cigarettes, and I'm sitting there and I'm quitting cigarettes, and I'm a week in, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and you start hearing this little voice go, come on, just one. What would it hurt to have one cigarette? Well, that's because I have receptor sites in my body that receive the chemical dose of nicotine. Receptors in my brain that produces a certain feeling in my body that I am used to. And the body's going, come on, you've been doing this for a year and a half. Now you're trying to break addiction to anger. You've been doing this for 30 years. You've programmed us this way. We ain't going to stop now. We're not doing that. And you start getting these thoughts that creep in. All of a sudden, it seems, to get you to go back to anger, to go back to depression, to go back to victimhood, to go back to sadness, to go back to whatever your flavor is, suffering. People can be addicted to suffering, literally be addicted to suffering. It's crazy, but it's how we work. Yeah, so I hope that answers it. But yeah, it's a chemical addiction, literally.
And within my book, I talk about all the lies we tell ourselves, ways we talk ourselves out of the flag being red.
Hurt people, hurt people. Yeah, that's one of them.
But then you also have this component of like, well, I should be sad. I had a therapist, they told me I should feel my anger. I should feel my pain. And I'm not talking about stuffing down emotions here, but I think this is also valuable to add to that conversation to say, at some point, we just become addicted to that feeling.
Yep. So this is not about repression.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way: to actually have true transformation in your emotions,
Mhm.
and to go into this would take 12 hours. We'd have to do a 12-hour podcast. To actually have changes in your emotions, you have to recognize how you're really feeling. So to actually have a transformation, you've got to be very honest with yourself. And what I would make the argument is to change, we have to become aware. Most people aren't even aware, so they're repressing all the time. We are taught in this society how to cope. We're not taught how to deal. And what will happen is a lot of us walk around and we portray a certain aspect of ourselves. And then deep down inside, we're really, really upset. But if you bring up your problems in this society, you're a freak, right? And Facebook has made this way worse, right? We all have problems. Problems are what make us grow to give more to the world. If you think you're going to reach a certain point in your life where you're going to have no problems, that ain't going to happen. You will be, if you don't have problems, check your pulse. You're dead. And so you will always have issues in your life. What we want to do is we don't want to get addicted to a particular problem so that we don't grow, because you want to upgrade your problems. And so the way to upgrade is to be honest with yourself, because who we are is portrayed in our outside environment. This doesn't always mean that you attract, because there's like this whole, new age type movement where it's like you attract what's in your life, man. And there's a part and parcel that is true. But it also could be that you're extremely judgmental of a certain person. Certain type of person that gets really angry, and you keep getting angry people into your life for some reason. Life is a projection of who we really are deep down inside, not who we portray ourselves to be, but who we're actually being. And you may have that person in your life because you need to learn a lesson deep down inside of yourself about yourself. And it's not to say, well, you have these people in your life because that's who you are, because that doesn't make sense if you're with toxic people. I know I've had it in my life. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. You're like, well, I'm not that type of person. I wouldn't do that to people. But what if it's in your life so you could learn how to not just coexist, but get those people out of your life? So
maybe the lesson is walk away. Yeah, we want it to be all the other lessons except for stay away from wolves, or stay away from.
Yeah. I always tell my son, I'm trying to teach him this.
Yeah.
Don't swim with sharks with stakes around your neck,
because
there are sharks out there. There's a really good fable, Aesop's fable of the scorpion. I don't know if you know this, Aesop's fable of the scorpion, where there's a frog on the bank of a river, and he's about to cross. And the scorpion says, okay, how about I hop on your back and ride across the frog, because I want to get to the other side. And the frog goes, no, you'll sting me. I know what you're going to do. You like to eat frog, scorpion. You'll sting me across the river. The scorpion goes, why would I do that, frog? Why would I do it? Think about it. We're going to be going across the river. I'll die with you. That doesn't make any sense. You're stupid. And frog goes, no, I will not cross the river with you on my back. A couple little banters go back and forth. The scorpion finally convinces the frog that why would he do that? It would hurt both of them. They're halfway across the river. The frog looks up, and guess what Scorpion's doing? Raising its tail, stabs the frog in the back, and they both go down in the water and die. There are scorpions in life. And we got to realize that. And once we can just have that realization, that's not repressing the emotions anymore. We're going, whoa, there's a toxic person in my life, and I'm addicted to them chemically in my brain and my body and my cellular. I'm addicted, and it's going to cause health problems. Because what happens is you get this cellular addiction, and your DNA itself will begin to mutate, because it's kind of like the coin presses. When they have a coin press and they put the hot liquid in the coin press, and the coin press presses down, it's a mold, right? Well, they do that for so long. You can't keep those molds forever, because it's so much intense heat and intense pressure that the mold begins to disintegrate, and it doesn't make the same looking coin. So they've got to remove the mold. They got to put a new mold in. Well, your DNA doesn't work that way. You have your DNA, and it's epigenetically, it turns on and off in different ways. It's not what we thought. It's not static. Okay, it's not static. It changes. You can have your DNA change and its expression in a singular experience. It can change based on the people that you're around throughout the day. This has been proven. These are Harvard studies, Yale, Princeton, Cornell. Amazing research into epigenetics. It means that your genes can change. There's something outside of your genes that can alter it. Well, what happens is you keep pressing that mold and your DNA starts to get basically worn out, and you keep pressing and making the same proteins. And then what happens is the cell mutates. And as soon as that cell mutates or starts producing cheaper proteins, which can happen as well, so the cell starts to break down and it starts producing cheaper proteins, you get weaker tissue, you get weaker organs, you get weaker immune system, you get a weaker body, and you degrade. You degrade. It's oxidative stress. It will kill you. I mean, I hate to say, hate to be so intense about it, but that addiction to the toxic person, the abuse, the Stockholm syndrome, the walking around and thinking that it's you and not them, and there's something wrong with you, and having your energy drained and laying on the couch all day long because you don't have anything else to give because this person said something so horrible to you, that you get hit with, and it's a gut punch, literally, and that will take your life. Like, we got to get serious about this, Sarah, because I mean, people need to change that. Like, we need to change the way we feel, and it's not about repression. It's about being aware and then changing based on that awareness. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And if anybody's listening, don't wait till it's too late. You know, part of my conversation, what I bring to this conversation is don't wait till we're in stage 4 cancer stages. You know, people are like, well, because it's like, oh, let's wait till you hit rock bottom. That's always a bad idea.
Always.
It's always a bad idea to wait till you can't digest your food, your hair's falling out, your body's falling apart. Oh, maybe I should do something about it. You know?
Sarah's so right, guys. I mean, I could just say this right now. I work with people every day that have, digestive disorders. And like I said, all disease begins and ends in the gut. And there's some people that I talk with and have talked with in the past, and a lot of them where they've let it go too far, and they tried. I mean, so many people with digestive health, they do try to get the help. I will give most people are really doing their best with what they can and what they know. But when it gets too late, when you don't change, I've seen people who are literally very intelligent. I'm talking people with masters and business degrees, leading teams of people as a nurse. We're talking very successful, from children up to CEOs of companies, that are not able to leave their home, that are so sick they can't take care of themselves or their children or their family, that can't provide income for themselves or for their family, that literally are homeless, living with somebody else in their basement or sleeping on couches, because that's how bad this can get. And it's no joke. That is happening in the world. We can go plug our ears and say, no. That happens. And you'd never think, those people never thought it could happen to them. Just like we don't think it can happen to us. Got to be cognizant of that, because that's the biggest lie we can tell ourselves is, that'll never happen to me. I'll figure this out. I get this all the time. I'll figure this out eventually. Yeah. I'll read one more book, even though I've read like 100. I'll listen to one more podcast. I'll get the YouTube. I'll Google it. I'll figure it out. And that never works. There's no magic powder, tip, trick, pill. There's just hard work and an expert to guide you, really.
So how do people, say someone's left a relationship, but they still feel the way I say it is, they're out of your bed, but still in your head. So they're not in your home maybe anymore, but you're replaying that book hitting you in the head, or replaying whatever it is, and still creating those chemical sensations and memorizations in your body that is still hurting you, just like if you were in the relationship, right?
Yeah. So there's a few phases to that, and you probably go through some of this, Sarah, and I do teach some of this information, like how to get rid of toxic people and how to be aware, because it does affect health, and I can't not teach it within my course with Optimized Health. But
Mhm.
one of the ways is to get very, 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 very honest with yourself
Mhm.
about that person's the meaning behind what they did. So what I mean by that is it's really hard to guess someone's intentions.
Uh-huh.
It's really difficult. So when we guess someone's intentions, that can be hard. But people have certain needs that they're trying to meet, and so um, there's certain human needs that we have to have met. Things like love. We have to have certainty in our lives. We have to have variety, change of pace every once in a while, right? If we don't have these things, we have to feel important in some way, shape, or form. If you ever get yelled at by somebody, just go, they're just trying to feel important because they don't have any importance in their life. I'll give you that tip. But with a toxic person, you really have to get very honest with yourself about they were conniving when
Mhm.
they literally did. They knew what they were doing,
Mhm.
and at such a level that they spent time most likely rehearsing what they were going to say to make you feel that way, and they get their needs met by feeding off of your negative energy. And I don't mean to be woo woo and weird. What I mean is literally what we're talking about today, the chemical presence of cortisol in your body. They get a rush by watching someone else go through that. And I know it sounds so crazy to some of you out there that might be like, who would ever do that? I don't know why. Because you know why you said that? Because you would never do that.
Yep.
You get a juice like I get chills sharing this information with you and Sarah right now. I get
Mhm.
chills when I do a coaching call with a client and watch them go, because I feel the stress leave their body. I get pumped up off somebody having a better day, off
Mhm.
making somebody's life better today, whatever the way that is. Sarah and I did a little thing before this, a little process just to calm her body down and get us out of the stress. And she feels better. And I feel better from doing it, from helping her with that. But that's just one little thing. I want to make Sarah's life better today. I want to make your life better today. And it's hard to imagine that somebody would do that. So we get caught in this vicious cycle of why would somebody do that? Why? You can't answer that because you're not like that. You feed
Mhm.
off good energy. You don't feed off somebody suffering and being hurt. And they
Mhm.
do. And so that's number one. Like, just you got to be integrity is always key in whatever you do in your life. Being honest with yourself with the situation you're going through, and honest with yourself about what you're facing, and what's actually happening. Because, like, all these people say, you can't go anywhere if you don't know where you are. You ever read a map, and you're like looking at the map, and you're like, I want to go here to this beautiful paradise. But if you don't know where you are on the map, you'll never get there. We got to be honest with ourselves. That's like the number one thing. We got to be integral and honest with ourselves as to what's really going on. Get to
Mhm.
the truth. And sometimes you need somebody to help you do that. Most of the time, I would say it's very hard to read the outside of the label from the inside of the jar.
Mhm. Mhm. And that's a real conversation among coaches. It's kind of interesting. You have all these coaches and healers, and you'll start saying, "Well, who have you worked with, or who are you working with?" And they're like, "Brrr." And then you have all these people very early in their journeys. They're like, I think I can do it by myself. And it's like, all these people with all these certificates. In fact, the more I think healed you are, the quicker you are to ask for help,
Yep.
and quicker to say, well, there's a problem here. There's a red flag in my own life or my own body or my own mind
Yeah.
or my own business.
Yep.
I'm not going to ignore that. I'm going to do something about it rather than, well, it'll probably be fine. It'll probably go away. Hopefully, time heals all wounds. I think I can handle it. I do think that's an important thing to note. And maybe people don't know that if they're not in coaching professions or mental health professions, or, many of us are very true and authentic about asking for that help and getting it
Yeah.
because we know that you can't do it on your own because we didn't. None of us did either.
And you've got to realize that um, somebody else out there has been through what you've been through.
Yeah.
So somebody else out there has either helped a lot of people in that space because that's what they've dedicated their lives to. I had some digestive issues. I have nowhere the digestive issues that people I work with have, but I've helped them
Hmm.
out of it because I've seen so many people go through it and so many people actually get out of the pain.
Hmm.
Um, and you might have somebody who's gone through it, but somebody else out there knows what you're going through and knows how to help you. And why not learn from their mistakes? Why not
Hmm.
learn from their tripping and falling? Why not learn from their trying this and it not working? Because otherwise what will happen is, I'll tell you, most of the time the patterns exist. You're going to do the same thing that they did. And if it took them 10 years to get to a point where they could in 8 weeks get rid of trauma in their relationship, or in 12 weeks, like me, I can help you get out of digestive issues that have plagued you for 30 years. Why would you want to go 10 years on the same path that I have and my clients have gone on and Sarah has and her clients have gone on? Why would you want to keep doing that? Why would you want to waste? You only get one life. I mean, unless you're into reincarnation, but even then you might come back as an ant or something and get squashed in a week. I don't know. I mean, whatever your beliefs are, I'm not trying to pick on reincarnation. Some people really do believe in that. And I see some evidence in the world where you could. I don't personally hold that. I see that I have one life. And I was listening to a book by Carl Jung 2 days ago. And he basically said that you need to live life in light of death. And it sounds so counterintuitive.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
And it sounds so counterintuitive, right? Right? You think, don't be negative. Don't be negative. No. Because when you actually grasp that you will die, you can begin to fully live your life.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely. And what legacy do you want to leave? I can't interact with people because I'm always in the bathroom dealing with my digestive issues. I'm always on my couch depressed from toxic relationship issues, right? Is that the legacy? How will your children remember?
Yeah, is that what you wanted when you were 5 years old? You want to be a firefighter and a doctor and a lawyer and all that stuff. Not that you have to be any of those things. You could be like a coach in people's lives. Yeah, you'd be like, oh, save lives, Not that those people are very important as well. But
you know, doctors, lawyers, and you could be a coach. No. I think that's important. So obviously awareness. And then are there any other, just another tip or trick? And it's like, okay, do this. If you notice your body spiraling into that cortisol, like memorization.
Yeah.
Anything?
So, you're so sweet, Sarah. Are you setting me up or something? Or maybe you're not, and I'm just going to totally blow this out. But there are no shortcuts. Mm-hmm. So many people are looking for a tip and a trick. Mm-hmm. I have it in my industry. You have it in yours. Mm-hmm. And people always think that like the next, for me, it's like the next powder, tip, trick, pill, magic fairy dust, I don't know, vibration machine, frequency machine's going to do it. And I can't tell you how much that stuff is totally irrelevant if you don't do the work. You've got to spend time working on yourself with a guide, a Sherpa, right? If somebody goes to climb Mount Everest, unless they're like unbelievable professional, they're not going to do it on their own. Even when they are unbelievable professional, you'll find those people still have Sherpas. They still have someone to guide them up the mountain. You want to know why? Because you can fricking die on Mount Everest. I know someone who did. They fell off. They got to the top and they were coming down and they died even with a Sherpa. And so what happens is, let's say I was like, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest. Let me don my nice little blazer jacket and I'll be warm up there. I'll get some gloves and I'll wear my nice little hat. I'm going to die. I am going to die because I am trying to tip and trick myself. Well, I've heard if you do deep breathing on the way to the top, I'll get there. It'll be fine, right? I can do this. You're lying to yourself because no tip and trick can solve a 20, 30, 40-year issue. If you've been living in stress and addicted to cortisol for 30 years, there is no tip and trick. There's a guided method and process and a professional that can guide and help you. And if you think there's going to be a tip and trick, all you're doing is getting, again, another addictive chemical called dopamine, feeling like you're doing something. Because when it's like if you make a to-do list and you check it off, proven, you get a dopamine hit every time you check something off. Even if you already did it and you wrote it on your list after you did it and checked it off, you're going to feel better about yourself. And so when you go online and you buy the $15 book and you buy the $20 probiotic and you buy the little thing here and you buy the little thing there, you feel freaking better about yourself for no reason. You didn't actually do anything that's going to actually solve the problem, because these issues like toxic people, I'll tell you because I have them in my life, and reading Sarah's book has helped. I've also worked extensively. I spent tens of thousands of dollars personally on self-development throughout my life to be able to do that, and had people guide me. I didn't just read a book. I had professionals help me like Sarah has. We all have had to do this, okay? And she's always reaching out for help, as am I. I always have someone in my corner, like a mentor or a coach or somebody who's further along than me. But what happens is when we do these little things and we don't have somebody guide us and actually take real action and holistic, I mean, I'm a holistic health practitioner, so I say holistic, but a really over-rounded spectrum, we lie to ourselves and think we're going to get better. And it's the definition of insanity. It is literally what Einstein said, which is doing the same thing over and over and over again and thinking you're going to get different results.
Uh-huh.
It's pure insanity. And it most of us would not want to say we're insane, but we act insane all the time. You know what I'm saying? And we do it too. Like I do it too. Like there's certain things I do that are insane. That's just insane that I'm still doing it and thinking I'm going to get a different result. It's not to dog on anyone. We're all equal. We're all equal. We all go on this journey. But when it comes to these things, these are lifelong struggles that you can't fix with a tip or trick. You just can't.
My tip and trick, they'll get on the phone with me and they'll say, hey, what question, if I'm meeting somebody new, like what are a couple of questions I can ask them to figure out if they're toxic or not? I was like,
really?
Wow. I mean, wow. If only it were that easy. And, I'm not making fun of them. I'm sad. I'm sad that it's so complicated. I'm sad that there's not an easy answer. I'm sad for the version of myself that just thought, okay, I just need to practice saying no more. And as long as I practice saying no to people who, ask for my time, then that I'll have boundaries and I'll be toxic person proof. And it's like, the scorpion's sneaky.
They're sneaky. They convince the frog. Even though the frog knows. Even though the frog knows.
The frog knows, yes. Okay, Optimized Health, Jacob Thurston, tell us where we can find more about you and your work.
So you can check me out at www.jacobthurston.com, just my name. And I have testimonials on our website of people who've gone through digestive issues and had crazy turnarounds in their lives. So you can go check that out, or you can just go straight to free training that I offer, which is really the 5 myths on how to solve your IBS. So I talk about all the ways that people go about it and really how much of a myth those things are and how they never end up leading anybody anywhere. It's that idea of the insane cycle. So you cannot make the same mistakes, guys. So you can stand on the shoulders of someone who's helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people with their digestive issues and not make the same mistakes that they did. In the process. So you can go check that out. It's right at the top of my main homepage. You just watch now, click and sign up, and we'd love to have you on there so we can help you.
Yeah, we'll add it to the show notes as well. So cool. Jacob, give us one last, I won't say tip and trick, but if you only had 1 minute message and it was going to be broadcast to the whole world, what would you say?
I would say if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. Mm-hmm. How much did Malcolm Forbes take with him when he died? 0. How much does somebody take with themselves? It doesn't matter how many toys you amass. When you're dead, you're dead. And so the reality of the situation is if you don't have your health, you literally have nothing. Not the relationships you built up, not the friendships, not the wealth, not the business, not the impact. You're gone, you're gone. And so don't wait until it's too late when it comes to this kind of stuff. Don't wait.
And I would add, some people aren't dead, but they're not alive. There's some people, if you're like, well, good, I'm not dead, but you're dead inside. You're dead on your couch. You're dead from exhaustion. You're dead from, that's just, throwing your best time away.
And also you're hurting other people because, that's kind of like there's 2 different types of suicide, really. And you and I know this from a coach that we both have in common that we've worked with. But and it's really hard to say this, and it's really difficult to say, but it's truth. And we all have to face, again, it's being real with ourselves. The first type of suicide is where we take our own lives and we spread that pain of our life out to everybody else. It's kind of like spreading the butter on the toast. You just spread your pain because everybody else now has to go through that pain that you were going through to see you give up on your life. There's also a second type of suicide. It's where you literally are committing suicide day after day after day because you don't want to be alive. And that also spreads pain out to people around you. Because we didn't get into it, but there's a level which when people view you doing something, they mirror neuron. It's a neuroscience thing that happens. And it's like if you watch somebody wrestling with somebody, you're actually seeing yourself wrestling. It's kind of cool, but also really bad when you're committing suicide every day because you don't want to live. Those little ones in your life, those little children, that little 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 6-year-old, 12-year-old, I don't care if 20-year-old has watched you live that way, and they're actually learning how to live that way day in and day out. And I don't think anybody wants to be that kind of example. So it's a real thing, very serious.
A very serious thing. And the friend, or coach that we have, the person we have in common, lost someone to suicide that influenced their life in a big way. So I know when he says it, what a heavy weight that is. And I know as we scream our message of, hey, everyone's not that miserable. Everyone's not having huge digestive issues. Everyone's not crying all the time or completely angry all the time because a toxic person is taking bites out of them every day. Some people aren't living that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay, your website one more time at Optimized Health.
Yep, jacobthurston.com. Just my name, pretty simple. You don't have to put the www in it. Just jacobthurston.com. Come check me out. Love to meet you. Love to have you watch our trainings, and love to get to know anybody who's interested in what we do. So
awesome, Jacob. Thank you so much for helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.
Thank you, Sarah.